Hello everybody! Welcome to join our webinar on innovative project presentations with Vectorworks and Twinmotion. My name is Tian Xiao, I'm Twinmotion Community Manager. Today we're very excited because it's the very first time we invite a guest to join our live presentation. Our guest is in UK at the moment, and we are in Strasbourg in France. So a very new experience for us. We hope you enjoy the webinar. Let's welcome our presenters. Jonathan Reeves, our special guest. He's an award-winning architect, author, and professional Vectorworks trainer in the UK. He's also Advent's official UK reseller, offering Twinmotion training and sales. So today he's going to start with a 3D project designed by himself in Vectorworks, then show us how to bring life, add motions and emotions to his 3D projects with various innovative tools inside Twinmotion. So he's going to demonstrate all this from scratch in just a moment. Our second presenter is Martin Krasman. He's the product manager of Twinmotion, specialized in real-time technology and rendering. He's a member of Twinmotion Develop team as a CG artist and also Twinmotion speaker at international events. Martin will basically take over the project from where Jonathan has stopped and added his creative touch to the project. You'll see that how he turned the design into a completely different styles using other tools in Twinmotion that Jonathan hasn't presented in his part. So many great contents in today's webinar. I hope you guys are ready for it. One last thing before we get started, we're going to do a live Q&A at the end. So Martin, Jonathan and I will take enough time to answer all of the questions. So without further ado, I'll give the word to Jonathan and I will join you later at the question and answer part.
Hello everybody, my name is Jonathan Reeves. I'm an architect and Twinmotion specialist. Just to introduce myself a tiny bit, my name is Jonathan Reeves. I'm actually a qualified practicing architect in the UK. We also spend a lot of time doing professional Vectorworks and Twinmotion training with 18 years experience. And recently I'm working as a Vectorworks Twinmotion BIM consultant, working with other firms too, which is exciting. I've been a UK reseller of Vectorworks and more recently Twinmotion in the last few years, and we've been quite successful in that. And finally, I've written a book, Innovative Vectorworks BIM. So if you're interested in the Vectorworks side of things, have a look at the book. So we are located in the central location of Loughborough, a university town in the middle of England, and it's brilliant because it's really about 2 hours from almost anywhere. We do a mixture of architectural projects still. I do a lot of Twinmotion and Vectorworks sales and training, 3D modeling and visualization for myself and for others. We have 3 websites, the architecture one, the Vectorworks one, and also the Twinmotion only focused one. And more recently, I've been developing my YouTube channel. I've now got 1,200 subscribers, so it's a little bit out of date already. I was very proud to get 1,000 subscribers, so please have a look at the channel. There's lots of Twinmotion and Vectorworks videos there if you're interested. Finally, I'm just going to play a quick video about the twinmotion.uk website, just to introduce you to that. It's a wealth of knowledge and information. I'm trying to make it UK focused. We've got some nice sort of screenshots, images, and a few quotes. You can see the buy section gives you a little bit of information on pricing, if you're interested in the standalone or the team versions, for example, what it's compatible with. We've got the feature set listed, and I'm trying to pick out what I think are the most interesting features to look at for architects and interior designers. My favourite section though is the gallery section. This is our user gallery where you and anybody who's produced nice work can get their work featured, both videos, a few of my own on there, and lots of other clients of mine. And also we've got the still images section. So please, some of you, if you've got nice work, I'm sure you have, submit to that. Finally, the tutorial section. I'm really enjoying making lots of tutorials at the moment. Some of them are proving quite popular, and we're also featuring some by others as well. Some Ask NK ones there, which are great. And finally, we've got the contact information here. So you can contact us easily. And again, you can see my lovely office in Loughborough. So we would love to hear from you. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this webinar on Vectorworks and Twinmotion with you and answering some questions with you later on. Let's have a look at the project we're going to use for this demonstration of Vectorworks and Twinmotion. First of all, I would like to spend a little bit of time just showing you my Vectorworks file setup. So if I click up to the layers, you can see I have a number of sheet layers in the project, and a bit further down I've got some design layers, quite a few less. So let's just start off with the drawings. So the way I use Vectorworks is essentially to sort of almost like a desktop publishing brochure to lay out my sheets. And I'm just going to scroll through the drawings for this particular project. You can see it's for a new eco home, essentially replacing the out-of-date building here and some stables here. The only other real feature on the site is a pond, which you'll see becomes quite a feature later in the Twinmotion animation itself. So I'm going to use the Apple and up and down arrow keys just to scroll through a few of the drawings on screen. You can see a quick site analysis. But really it starts to get a bit more interesting when we look at the rendered site plan. Now this is a rendered site plan of the 3D model in Vectorworks using very basic but OpenGL rendering. Here we've got the plans, and again you can see within the plans we have the option to have various levels of detail. I've got some detail showing in those viewports at the moment, but if I did want to, I could easily go and actually turn that detail off as well. So there's the upstairs plan, not that exciting. But when we get onto, I think, the elevations, you begin to really clearly see the benefits of having the three-dimensional model in Vectorworks. So, you know, you might call this a form of BIM. It's not really collaborative BIM, it's design BIM as I term it. So one of the great things about Vectorworks is the fact it has RenderWorks built in. And for any 3D work, RenderWorks is an extremely fast and very, very capable little renderer. The thing I like about it is it's fairly simple to use. It has fairly limited sort of options, but it can actually produce some really nice renders straight out of the box. And you can see how I use it to generate some sort of 3Ds. This is just OpenGL rendering with some basic shadows and a little bit of ambient occlusion. You can see I'm able to generate exploded views because obviously I've made my model into different layers, which I'll talk about more in a moment. And you know, you can get some really nice quality renders just without really any time at all. A couple more here, a couple more perspectives, and rendered floor plans. These are quite nice. And storyboard images. These are very easy to do too, and some internal views as well. You can actually render a little bit higher quality using custom RenderWorks and Final Quality. But to be honest, this is where Twinmotion will really start to pay off if you're short of time, and particularly if you're looking to do animation. So at this stage, I'd like to just show you a little bit more about the organization of the model. I'm going to go to the design layers. In fact, I will go to the organizational palette here, see if I can explain this in a bit more detail. So you can essentially see the main layers of the design are the context, the ground floor, the first floor, the roof. I've also got a proposed site layer and a layer for some heliodons, got a few spare layers in there. If I look at my classes, you can see that I've been not that disciplined with my classes on this particular project. And I'm using a mixture of the uniclass classes that come in automatically when I use the walls, and some of my own that are built into my 3D template. Now, the most important thing is, as long as you class up different elements, either in elemental classes or material classes, they will all be recognized when they go through to Twinmotion. So the key here is to group things into classes, which you should be doing anyway in your Vectorworks modeling. Maybe apply the texture to the class, and then when you go to Twinmotion, that will be one material that will be seamlessly available to texture up quite rapidly. So that's the sort of biggest tip I can give you. I'm just going to have a quick look at the design layers again in a bit more detail, as I said. So let's have a quick look at the ground floor plan. So here we are on the design layer. You can see if I just peel back the roof layer, you'll see into the first floor. Take off the first floor as well. See into the ground floor. And you can see we can spin the model around. So see the level of detail that I've modeled. It's, you know, relatively detailed, but not all the detail is in this model. And that's because when we get to Twinmotion, we can add an awful lot more detail to the model, both externally and internally, quite rapidly. So what I'm going to do is just go to my proposed site layer for a second. And this is the layer where I've actually viewported in the other layers for the model and actually put them in a little bit of context for the site, just so you can see the model on the site here as well. So I think we're ready to export to Twinmotion. So the key is to model in different layers, but also to model in different classes for the different materials. So when we're ready, we're just going to go up and export. You'll see that Vectorworks has a really wide array set of 3D exports. Quite a few of these will actually go into Twinmotion. In the past, I've used OBJ. I've also experimented with FBX, which works well. And just lately, I've been using the Cinema 4D export, which I find comes in particularly well, actually. And I also use occasionally Cinema 4D anyway, so the file does double duty. So basically, I'm going to render pretty much with the settings as they are. I don't want to bring cameras or lights or planar objects through. So I'm going to click OK. And let's just go off and save this to my file. Let's call this new export. Click save. Now you will notice down in the bottom right corner, Vectorworks is just taking a moment to render the geometry. But that's it. So we have now exported. So if we just pop into Twinmotion, so I'm just going to get the launcher, the product manager. Let's launch the final version of the software. Okay, so while that's loading up, for those of you who haven't used Twinmotion, the really exciting thing is it's cross-platform. It works on the Mac and the PC. It works on a range of hardware. I'm actually running it on a MacBook Pro, and it works really nicely on that. And essentially, if you have a faster graphics card, the better performance you'll get. But, you know, anything from a 4 gig graphics card will work nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and click Import, Open. Let's go and select that model that we just exported. There it is, the Cinema 4D. It's about 32 megabytes, so not particularly huge. And let's go ahead, quick look at the options. So you can see we do have a few options in here. You can keep the hierarchy, which is nice because you can manage things, or if you want to, collapse it by material, which will make a smaller file. So let's click OK, import, and you can see the file is importing or parsing, as it's referred to here. I'm going to basically use the imported materials this time, just to show you the difference, and I'll click OK. So the model should appear. Let's have a look. Let's zoom out a bit. And fantastic. It's already come in with quite a lot of the materials that were applied in Vectorworks already. Now this isn't really a problem. Sometimes we just want to start from scratch and reapply, but some of the timber cladding and the zincs come in quite nicely. And that's basically how we get started on the import. So for this particular webinar, I'm just going to import the model again and show you what it's like when it comes through without any textures at the start. And you can see with this particular option, it hasn't actually come through with any textures, but that's okay, we're going to replace those. So on the right hand side, we can open up the scenograph, and on the left hand side, we can open up the materials browser. The first thing we're going to do is add some grass. You can see Twinmotion comes with a really nice range of different types of grass. And let's put some man-made materials. We've got some asphalt we're just going to add to the roads and to the pavements. Going to use a slightly different tone there. We'll go back into the material library and click the return button, and you can see there's also a section for water. So one of the important things about this design was a pond which was on the existing site, and the client was keen to retain and enhance this pond. So I've just dragged some water on. You immediately can see the nice bit of motion. So let's scroll on to the tree section of the object browser. We can make this a little bit wider if we need to, and you can see that there's a really good range of trees that ship with Twinmotion. We can essentially just drag and drop those into the model. Now all of those can be resized, and a little tip here is you can see what I created in Vectorworks was some kind of tree poles almost, so that it gave me a guide of where to snap. So these were bits of geometry in my Vectorworks model. So basically what I've done here is I've placed this one tree, and I would like to have a little avenue of trees. So you can see with the shift key held down, I can now duplicate a number and spacing of trees, like a duplicate array function in your CAD software. Let's just re-space these trees slightly. You can see I can rotate them, I can move them. That's excellent. And basically, let's reposition those as we need to. While I'm doing this, if I want to pan around, I just hold the middle button of my mouse, my 3-button mouse, and I can pan the view within Twinmotion. Again, let's just use this duplicate function a little bit more to create another avenue of trees. That's looking nice. So we're going to go back into the browser and we're going to now look at adding a vehicle path. So I'll zoom out a tiny bit here and you can see the road. I'm essentially going to click a couple of points. So one at the sort of start point. Let's go a bit further. One here, couple here, and click to the end. As soon as I let go, Twinmotion will essentially start to spawn some vehicles along that path. And you can see that we can vary the amount of vehicles that are spawned. And I can easily sort of modify and change the cars, the amount and the density with the various sliders down in the dock. We can actually turn 2 lanes on and off, as you can see. Let's get that density down a little bit maybe and adjust the speed. So I'm just going to put another path in. Let's click escape and start a brand new one. You've got to be careful you don't have the existing path selected. So it's better to click off, select something else before you go back into the path. Otherwise, Twinmotion will assume you want to edit the path. So I'm just going to pop a new path in now. That's looking good. So let's sort of finally put a few more clicks around this corner. Yeah, that's looking good. And then we can basically click the escape key when we're ready. And again, Twinmotion will spawn some cars. So with the sliders, we can just simply adjust the density, or we can actually type some numbers in so there's not too many cars spawning down there. Fantastic. So I'm going to adjust this path a little bit. I simply click on the path and I can pull on the handles and just tweak the position of those very straightforwardly, very easily. I can easily pan the view. That's one of the beauties of the real-time rendering engine. You don't have to kind of reset the view and re-render. Everything is completely live and real-time, and you can get a really kind of feel for the design and navigate around the design in a very sort of fluid manner. You do have to have a good graphics card. We'll maybe talk about that later, and perhaps Martin will talk about that when the questions come up. But you know, you can see that the real-time experience is quite powerful. So I'm just dragging on a couple of different types of glass onto the model. I'm going to go to the wood section of the library and drag some wood cladding onto the wood cladding section of the model. Let's just readjust the lighting a little bit there. And essentially I'm going to scale by typing in the scale or clicking on the slider section of the scale bar just to tweak and adjust that scale so the timber cladding looks a little bit more realistic. We could actually click more and go into the rotation section as well. Let's put some concrete. No, let's actually go for, I think we'll try some cobbles, try a few different types of paving perhaps on these walls and this paving area here. And let's move around a little bit more. Excellent. You can see sometimes if you don't apply the material correctly in Vectorworks, essentially it can apply it to the wrong element in the model, so we might have to go back and fix that later. That's okay, let's just carry on working for now. So I'm going to put some white render on this top section. That's looking good. And we'll basically go for some roof coverings. There's quite a selection in the library again, and this was going to have a zinc roof, this model. So we'll put one of those standing seam roofs on. We might need to rotate it. Actually, we'll go for a slate, I think, on this early stage of the design. So we'll navigate back, let's have a look at the wall coverings again, and we'll go something a bit whiter with a bit less texture on for the external walls. So I'm going to start to work on this upper floor terrace a little bit now, and again we need to get some glass in those roof lights. So these are the roof lights down into the kitchen from the flat roof above, and we'll kind of move around to a different point of the model and we'll pan in, zoom in a little bit. Let's get into the model here and see if we can kind of get the floor looking a bit nicer. So I'm just going to navigate inside the model. So we're now inside the project. We're going to drag some nice flooring. Again, it's really easy to change the reflectivity, the scale, the rotation of these objects, as you would expect in most other 3D software, but it's so real time, it's just straightforward and easy to adjust. So we can use, on my MacBook Pro, the different lighting. So you will see that you have the touch bar, and you can essentially just slide the lighting around, which is a really nice feature of the MacBook Pro. Now, you know, this model here is actually running on the MacBook Pro. I do now have a Razer Core X, which I'm using as well at times, and that gives me more sort of graphics power when I need it. But you can see it's running really nicely just on a little MacBook Pro on this sort of scale of model. So we'll zoom in a bit more, have a look at these materials, a bit more detail. Okay, fantastic. So you can see, you know, we're going to go through, gradually refine the model, and we're going to start to have a look at the landscape shortly. Let's just pan the view around a little bit more. Very easy, very fluid in real time. So let's move along to the vegetation and landscape section. And again, in there, this is where we're going to find all our trees, grass, flowers. So what I'm going to do is click on the grass, and I'm going to click onto the vegetation brush down in the dock. And you can see already we have a dome popping up showing us the radius that we're going to be essentially painting grass onto our model with. And you can see I can easily adjust the diameter and the density. If you make a mistake, that's fine, you could just undo. So you have pretty much unlimited undos with Twinmotion. So I'm just kind of broadly moving around, essentially, you know, almost painting grass, really. Let's reduce that brush size a little bit more so we can be a bit more careful on the edges of this pond and so on. You can see it's really very Photoshop-like in many ways. That's one of the beauties of Twinmotion. I really like the Photoshop-like qualities it gives you. It kind of really means that you can sort of be quite loose and fluid at times when you're sort of creating a 3D model. And let's pan around. You can see when you get into the detail of the grass, it's actually pretty detailed. A few little gaps there, so we can sort of almost overspray with the tool, a slightly more detailed tool again. So I think you get the idea of the grass. Let's have a look at maybe some of the plants and flowers. Really nice. You can drag those down into the dock to load in essentially additional plants and flowers that you would like to use with your vegetation brush. And if I just hold shift down, I can select multiple ones, and this is really beautiful. You can see so rapidly now I'm able to enhance that landscape and spray, you know, a multitude of really beautiful flowers. And you can see it's basically mixing them in fairly randomly. And again, you can adjust the density, the brush size quite straightforwardly. But you know, instead of having to place each individual plant in maybe other 3D software, you know, the beauty is you can essentially just zoom in and zoom out in real time and really just sort of be quite fluid and quite free with the way you're essentially painting this landscape. Here's some longer grass. Let's drag some of that down into the model, and let's click on the vegetation brush, and let's just sort of spray a little bit of longer grass down onto my mod project. Maybe where the sort of grass is a bit less kept. You can see immediately it sprays. Now the preview I'm looking at now is actually not on the best quality because I'm on my MacBook Pro. I think this is on medium quality at the moment, and you know, if you have a really good graphics card, you will see even the preview at higher level of quality, but it's perfectly good, as you can see. What's really nice is the movement, the motion, the way the plants actually respond to the lighting, to the wind, to the weather. And actually, you know, having that atmosphere in 3D renderings is something that I have been looking for my whole career. And, you know, without sort of heavy use of photoshopping, which is fine for still images, but of course, you know, Photoshop doesn't really help you when you come to animate or create maybe navigatable BIM files or panoramics. You know, you really need software that can give you that atmosphere. And Twinmotion for me is you know, very enjoyable because it sort of allows you to, you know, create that feel and look for the client that you might not otherwise have imagined you could sort of visualize for them. So I'm going to just put some poppies in here, a bit of contrast to the other flowers. And let's go back to the section and look at some bushes. Similar process, I can either just drag the bush directly, and once you've selected it, every click you place in the viewport will place an instance of that plant. Now the nice thing is each instance can be slightly different size, different rotation, so they don't all look the same. And again, if you select a whole bunch of them, like I did there with the shift key, essentially now I can basically, every time I click, I get a slightly randomized grouping of, or should we say, individual plants. So you can see how rapidly you can kind of begin to landscape up. So it doesn't look too formal, and that's what I was looking for with this particular area. I really like the rocks in Twinmotion. The rocks are very beautiful, really realistic, and they do add a certain sort of nice quality to the images. Again, there's loads of different sizes, so I'm just dragging in a few different sort of rocks. Let's place a few by this water's edge. I think we're going to come back and work on the pond area a little bit more later, as you'll see. Each one, as you put it in, you can easily rotate them. You can kind of scale them. Let's put a slightly larger one there. Maybe we'll put something around the edge of the pond. Let's get some more landscape here. So again, Twinmotion does have this fantastic library of plants. Obviously it's not completely exhaustive, but you know, you do have a library, and the great thing is they respond to the environment, to the weather. I'm going to put some water lilies into the pond. That's really fun. And yeah, that's looking really nice. Let's just drag and drop some of those in to the project. They essentially sit on the water. Now don't forget to save your file as you're working. It's always a shame if you lose any progress, and sometimes you want to record different states of the model. So let's change to a different view, and I'm going to work on the zinc cladding for a bit here. I'm going to not only adjust the colour in real time, but also I think I'm going to start from scratch. Click more and go to the open, and actually open a section where I've got the materials which were exported directly from the Vectorworks model. So I'm going to click on my zinc cladding, and let's open that and preview that. Sometimes between Vectorworks and Twinmotion you decide you actually want to change the materials a little bit. So let's zoom in, have a look at that. That's nicely mapped. Okay, so let's have a look at the next section. We're going to put some people, some characters. Now you can see that we have a library, and not only do we have individuals, we have groups. And what's really nice is every time we click to place a different group, Twinmotion actually generates a slightly randomized group of people with a different selection of characters. I'm actually just inside the model now, and it looks a bit awkward, but we'll kind of see how that looks in a minute when we get some detail in there. So it's quite a busy little party going on, just to create a little bit more life for you today to show you how this can work. We can see we also have individuals, so you know, we can be a bit more specific. And each individual has the ability to pose in different poses, so you can have them standing, sitting, lying, all sorts of stuff. And we also have different, should we say, clothing, different looks. So, you know, even though there's a relatively limited library of people, because you can change the poses, the animation, and the colour of the clothing they're wearing, you can actually generate a really big variety in terms of characters and landscape. So let's zoom in a bit here further. Let's add somebody on the balcony here, and we might want to just rotate those people around just so they're sort of facing the right area in a bit. So let's just make sure we're not selecting into the glass. Let's put a few people inside the model. That does help, give it a bit of life. Fantastic. Okay, so let's pan out a little bit more. Let's finish up with the people, I think, very soon. Yeah, place maybe one or two more. You're just sort of scrolling through. Well, I don't think we'll go for those guys. It's not that hot. Let's go back and put some animals in. So this is under the character section, under animals. And, you know, the obligatory cat. It's really sweet, little cat. I'd like to see a bit more variety of cats and dogs myself. We can easily add some life, some birds. The butterflies I think are really nice. These are nice. You just drag them in. Quite a quirky name called the beetles. I suppose it helps you remember it and identify it. Basically, you can drag the butterflies in, and they sort of randomly just fly around the landscape. And these little touches really add, you know, quite a lot of, should we say, atmosphere and movement and motion to the Twinmotion file. And again, these kind of things would just traditionally be, in most 3D software, really, you know, really hard to do. So let's move in a little bit more and add some fish into the pond. And maybe the client actually does have a horse, hence buying such a large site with the stable. Let's add a few pigeons. Just drag and drop them we can rotate them around each time. You can see they all have a slightly sort of different animation and different time. Let's click on the selection tool and we'll just put those fish actually in the water a little bit, just so they're not sort of swimming up in the air, and we'll move them around. Let's hold shift down and we should be able to copy a few different sets there. Again, they're all slightly random, so you don't need to worry too much. They're not identical, and the way they move is pretty nice, pretty realistic actually. So let's go back and see if we can add a few more butterflies. I think you're getting the idea with the nature, but this for me is a really fun part of Twinmotion. So about time we sorted out the background, I'm now going to change the model to countryside. We have quite a range of backgrounds, and easily you can add more with almost like a sky dome, and you can map your own images. You see down there there's a rotation dialog as well, so if you do want to rotate them you can. And let's carry on with some of the landscape around this area here. I'm going to go to the miscellaneous section. Here you're going to find things like hedges, bits of dead wood, ivy growing up the walls, those sort of things. So I'm going to just tweak the adjustment and rotation here. I'm going to hold shift down once again. We'll see if we can do a duplicate array. Let's crank up the number. Just clicking, you can either type the number in or just click the arrow key. Let's do 12. And that's really nice in terms of the way it's done that. I'm going to go into the scenograph. This makes it a little bit easier for me to scroll up and down. It's a bit like the manager really in most software, and I can select all of those as one group, and again I can hold shift down, essentially duplicate them as a group. So that makes it much faster. Let's just tweak the position of them. Let's hold shift down again and just copy those a bit further across and pan across a little bit. And you can see it really doesn't take long to add a lot more background, a lot more context to the model, and essentially get that atmosphere that we're looking for to show the boundaries of the property here. Click OK. I think we've got a couple of spare ones. Let's move those a tiny bit there. We'll just click on that one and delete. Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to now work on, I think, this area of the landscape a little bit more. Again, I'm going to get my landscape brush and carry on spraying a bit more grass in this area. Let's adjust this brush size, make it quite large. And you can see very easy to do. So with a bit of practice, we can adjust the brush size, we can keep moving around the model, we can spray quite large areas of the planting and the grass. Yeah, just got to be a little bit careful on some of the areas of detail. Let's go and do a bit more around this side. And I think, well, yeah, let's work on this area around the pond. This is a really key area for the client to see. So what I'm going to do, once again, is select a number of those different trees, reduce the brush size a little bit here. I'm going to basically click and essentially spray landscape or trees quite rapidly. Okay, it's relatively random, but we can actually delete those if we need to and actually place them specifically, given the time. So I'm just going to drag in some really specific bushes that I'm looking to show the client, and let's kind of add a few more of those. You can see it really starts to come together quite rapidly, and it's it's really fun. As I say, this is the best part of the fluidity of this software. It's just incredible. Previously I would have done this in Photoshop, but it would have taken a lot longer. And of course, as you move the model around, it doesn't make any sense. Photoshop, you can't really get different views, whereas Twinmotion, you can dynamically change the view at any time. Now, just a quick word, I'm going to add a few more leaves and things. Sometimes it's quite nice to sort of take away from the realism and add, a bit of dirt and trees and realism. Again, let's get that brush size down, and let's just add some nice fine detail here. Just type in 2 for that small number there, and we can just type a nice little bit of an edge to the grass around this this sunken patio area. The idea of that was to give a bit of shelter actually for the client in the prevailing wind of this rather open site, also to ground the building somewhat in its landscape. Okay, so Twinmotion allows the architecture and the context and the landscape to sit together. Things to me like the movement, the cars, the people, the birds flying around, this is where you can kind of get the atmosphere. And of course, we also have large libraries of furniture. So let's just quickly add a table. actually decide to swap that one for, let's go for a slightly more minimal one. And I think at this point it's a great idea for me to hand over to Martin for his part of the presentation, and I think he's going to look at a bit more of the inside, the lighting, furniture, those kind of issues, and some of the other lovely new features of Twinmotion 2019. I'll be back later for the questions, and I look forward to talking with you and hearing more from you a little bit later on.
Thank you, Jonathan, for this quick introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Martin, I'm Twinmotion Product Manager. So just quick few words about myself. I've been joining the Twinmotion team about 5 or 6 years ago, working on Twinmotion library. Now I'm the main presenter. So we worked together with Jonathan on this demo. He mainly focused on the project itself using Vectorworks, and I've been mainly focusing on the context. So I've been using SketchUp to create a quick context around the project. And actually, let me just switch right away to Twinmotion and start showing you what I've done after Jonathan passed. So here is just the project Jonathan sent me. As you saw during the presentation, he was using a MacBook Pro, and here he just sent me the Twinmotion file, and I've keep working on the project using my Windows workstation. So as I said, I've been working on the context, so here I've just imported a SketchUp file. Twinmotion is compatible with most 3D modeling software, and of course SketchUp as well. I just saw that my microphone was a bit too high, the sound, sorry for that. So now it should be a bit better. Please let us know in the comment if it's better. So yeah, I was talking about the context. I've been creating this context using SketchUp, and I've been using the same path system that Jonathan showed you, just to bring a bit more animation to the background of my project. First thing I want to talk about is that in Twinmotion there is a complete ecosystem to start to bring life to your project. And for us, this ecosystem you can find in the Nature tab, Weather. Here we have two basic sliders. First one is controlling the cloud coverage. So if I start to drag this slider here, cloud will appear, and at some point it will start to rain, which will affect automatically all the material of the project. Second slider here is controlling the season. So here we are in summer, but if I start to move this slider, we'll switch to autumn. In autumn, leaves start to fall from the trees, as you can see here. Leaves also turn yellow and turn red. And if I move this slider, we'll switch to the winter. In winter, all the trees lost their leaves, all the material gets overlaid by snow. And now if I switch back to my first slider, because we are in winter, it won't rain anymore, it will snow. And I think, I don't know where you are based, everyone, but here in France, it's pretty much this weather outside. Really cold with a lot of snow. So let's maybe switch to something a bit more warmer. So Twinmotion, as you can see, you can change, you can visualize, you can make modification pretty quickly. It has been designed to be a quick prototyping tool that allows you to start to feel emotion around your project. When we designed the software, our main goal wasn't to create just a software that creates a render really quickly. The main goal behind Twinmotion was to create something simple. We know that there is plenty of other rendering software on the market, but most of them are really complex. There is tons of options. Sometimes you tweak just one of those options and the render time double or triple. The idea behind Twinmotion was to create a plug-and-play solution that you can be productive with straight out of the box. And for us, that means really focusing on creating a simple UI, a simple interface. So this interface consists of 3 major panels. It starts with the library. Jonathan already talked about that. In the library, there is by default, natively inside Twinmotion, thousands of objects. ranging from materials created and dedicated to architecture. As you saw with Jonathan's presentation, if you want to change a material, you just enter a folder, you pick one material, and it's just a basic drag and drop from the library to the viewport. After the material, we have object, vegetation, grass, flowers, bushes, furniture for both interior and exterior. We have some light, ERS, OmniLight. We'll talk about that in a minute. One thing that is really important also for our user is what we call the user library. The user library allows you to create your own material and import your own object and save them directly inside Twinmotion user library, so you will have access to them for every future project. The second major panel of Twinmotion library, of Twinmotion interface is the bottom one, is what we call the dock. The dock is basically where you find all the options, the tools and the settings. For example, here my wood material is still selected, so I have a few options regarding this specific material. I can, for example, change the scale of my material, I can change the color of it, or also I can change the reflection. And as you can see in real time the effect of what you are doing. You don't need anymore to push a button to wait 1 hour or even more to see the result of what you are doing. The third panel of Twinmotion interface, is this right panel, is what we call the scene organizer, the scene manager, the scene graph. It's basically a layer system similar to Photoshop, where you can create folder and where you can also turn on and off different parts of your project. For example, here I've created a few folders for my background. For example, here my decal background is just all the details that I have on my road, all the patchwork and the dirt. So for example, here I can just hide and unhide part of my project like that. Also, all the hierarchy you have set up in your modeling software will be saved when you import your project into Twinmotion. So you keep really all the hierarchy you have set up. So as you can see here, we have a small pond. This was an important feature of the project because it was already it's a real project and the pond was already on the site, so it was really important for the habitant of the future project to keep this feature. So we leave it on the project. We even have some fish under the water over here. And now actually let's switch to the interior to show you a bit how about the furniture that we have inside Twinmotion. First thing, actually, we just switch inside. In Twinmotion, there is a complete ecosystem where you can change weather and season, but also at any moment, actually we don't need the scene graph anymore. At any moment you can change the time of day, so you can make sun study. You can also precisely geolocalize your project. So let me just come to the localization option. And here, as you can see, you have some kind of Google map where you can precisely geolocalize your project, so you can visualize the lighting connection during the whole year. So now let's just drag a few objects. So we'll come to the furniture folder, home, living room. Here we can start with the decoration. If I want to add a frame, for example, like this one, just basic drag and drop from the library to the viewport. We also have some, the bottom of the library, we have some carpet. Let's just add a carpet on the floor like here. We can also add, for example, some plants. Same thing, just drag and drop, as simple as that. For this project, I have already worked on the interior. So let me just switch back to my scene organizer. I will actually simply remove all the different objects that I just added. And I will select my interior folder and just unhide it. So in Twinmotion, there is natively thousands of objects, but we can't go over everything. So maybe in a specific project, you will need a specific chair or a specific sofa, or whatever. Now, Twinmotion, in the latest version, we introduced a partnership with BeamObject. So directly in Twinmotion, you have access to the whole library of BeamObject, of 3D objects from the BeamObject library. So yeah, we just open this catalog. Here you have all the different folder, construction, doors, furniture. There is a brand that I like to work with. It's R&D Poland. So let me just type that. And for example, let's pick an object like this big armchair. If I want to add this chair to my project, I will just click on Send to Twinmotion User Library. This will save this object to my library, and this will also add the object under my mouse, so I can just simply add this object to my project. Now that I have this object on my scene, I can start to customize it. So for example, I can use the material picker tool to select the leather of my armchair, and I can just, for example, erase the reflection of it. Same thing, if I want to add a bit more light to the project, I just come back to Twinmotion library and enter the light folder. Here we have plenty of different light. We have the omnidirectional light, spotlight, neon light, and also the ERS file. And you can also load your custom ERS, you load your own texture. So for example here, if I want to add a light to my project, it's just a basic drag and drop from the library to the viewport. Now that my object is here, sorry about the beam object. I forget that with the shared screen we are using, we can't see the different window. Let me just switch that on. Sorry for the small issue. So we'll just restart where I've been starting to talk about beam object. So sorry for the issue. So in Twinmotion there is this beam object option that will open a catalog. So now you are seeing the window correctly. In this catalog you have different folders up here where you can choose different type of object. For example here I just enter the furniture folder and have access to all those different objects. There is, as you can see, just for the furniture, 63 pages of objects. So I don't remember how many objects there is on the beam object platform, but quite a few. And so as I did, I just type you can just type whatever object type you want. Here I just like to work with this brand. So here if you want to add an object to your project, you just pick the object in the beam object catalog and you click on Send to your Twinmotion User Library, and it will just save your object and it will add the object to your project. So yeah, where I was before that. Yeah, I was talking about the lighting. So here I just drag a few light from the library to my viewport, and here down here we have a few options. We can set up the intensity of the light, we can set up the color of the light, the angle. So we have plenty of options to start to bring life to the project. So now I think it's time to talk about media. So in Twinmotion, if you want to create a media, it's fairly simple. I will enter this media option over here, image. I will click on the big plus button. This will create a new point of view in the space, a new image. I can of course adjust a bit the point of view of my image. I can even enter the advanced properties of this image. So for example, by default in Twinmotion, when you create an image, it creates an image on a 2K resolution, but we can go to 4K. We can go even up to 8K. Here you can even manually type the own resolution you want. So for example, here I just want a panoramic image, so let me just type a custom height. Here, as you can see, there is plenty of different options, like changing the FOV of the camera and such. And if I want now to export this image, I will just come to the Export tab. I will select the image we just created together. I will click on Start Export. I will send this to my desktop. So it will just take a few seconds to generate this image on a 4K resolution, like that. So just switch back to my desktop. I will just open the image, and here, as you can see, we have created this 4K image on just 5-6 seconds. Back to Twinmotion. So as you can see, creating an image is fairly simple. It's also pretty fast to render. When we create a render, we enhance a lot of different things like the lighting, the anti-aliasing. So You have a nice preview in the viewport, but when you are creating this export, everything will be even more beautiful. Then we have the panorama. If you want to create a panorama, same thing as the image, you just click on big plus button. This will create a new hotspot. You can of course add multiple hotspots. Then when you will export those panorama, in the option over here you can select the TwinLinker link. TwinLinker is an online platform that allows you to create a virtual visit of your project that you will be able to share with your clients or coworker. So let me actually just switch to the Twinmotion TwinLinker platform. So it will look like this. We'll just give a few seconds to load all the panorama on my account. Now I can go full screen. So here I am on the asset page. Here on the left I have all the different panorama I have uploaded to my project. Here is the latest panorama I have already exported for this project. It was an 8K image. The size of the image exported from Twinmotion was that. So I just exported this prior the live. And now from this panorama you can create a virtual visit. So I'm just going to create one with you so you can see how it goes. So to create a new virtual visit, you just click on the new virtual visit button. You can name it whatever you want. Let me just create a new visit. I will need to pick the starting point of my visit. Let's pick the panel number 1. It just takes a few seconds to load the panorama. So this is my panorama. It's a 360 image where you can turn the camera in any direction. Now what I can do is basically create a hotspot and link another panorama to this hotspot. So here we just look for the second panorama of my project. I think it's the number 5. Yes. Once my hotspot is now placed on my project, I can go to this panorama. And now I am in my second hotspot. And basically here I will just create a succession of panorama, like a list of panorama, and I will be able to switch from one point to another. Like here I can just jump to my first panorama. Here I'm just going back and forth. But you can create an endless number of panorama in your virtual visits. And at the end, it will just basically give you a web link that you can share with whoever you want. So here you just copy that, you send that by email. Actually, I think we have a link that we'll be able to share in the chat panel. Yeah. So yeah, we'll just share on the chat panel a link of this project. So you can just go to the chat panel really quickly, or you can also wait for the end of the presentation. And you will be able to just visualize this TwinLinker of this project directly on your device. If you are on a mobile platform or on a desktop, you can. Okay, actually a small issue with the link, so let me just do it myself. So here I've already set up, created a visit for this project, and let me actually just paste that in the chat panel on YouTube. Actually, it's YouTube that won't let me share the link. So actually, let me just open the link directly on my page and show you how it looks when you have a finished product, a finished virtual visit. So it's only, all of that are 8K panorama, so it takes a few seconds to load. And here I have different panorama of my project. I can switch from around the stables where the horses are stored. We can now switch to the roads. It's just after the rain over here. As you can see, there is some puddle on the road. Let's switch to the inside, to the front of the project. Now we can go toward the entrance, maybe go on the back. And all of that I'm visualizing this virtual visit on my workstation. But if I was on my tablet or on my smartphone, I can just do the same thing. So just a quick overview of what is TwinLinker. So now let's switch back to Twinmotion. Next media we can export out of Twinmotion is what we call it's just basic video. So to create a video, it's also fairly simple. So let me maybe just grab some altitude. If you want to create a video, same thing. You just click on the Bake Plus button. This will create a new clip, a new video with a first keyframe. This is the starting point of the video. Now you just need to move the camera. You click on the small plus and Twinmotion create a second keyframe. And that's it. Twinmotion automatically creates the animation between the first keyframe and the second one. There is nothing else to do for that. And now I can right away export this small clip. You can change the time of the clip, you can make it a bit more slow, like for example it can last 30 seconds, so the movement will be much slower. You can even do time-lapse, so for example the starting keyframe would be a bit after noon, and the end of the clip will be just before the night. And now when you are playing your clip, the sun will slowly go down. So with Twinmotion we can export regular video. We can I think that now the link is working fine on the chat panel. We have a bit of issue with that. Sorry for the issue. So now you can go. You can click on the link. So with Twinmotion we can export regular video, but also 360 video that you can basically turn the camera in any direction while the video is playing. You can also export 3D video that you can put on something like a Google Cardboard or Samsung Gear VR. And finally, the last media you can export out of Twinmotion is what we call a beam motion. A beam motion is a standalone viewer of the project. It creates a .exe file that you can share with whoever you want. It doesn't require Twinmotion, so you just pick the exe file, you send that to your client, to your coworker. It will launch your project in this full screen mode like that, without all the editing tools that you have inside Twinmotion. And from there, we still have a few options. Your client or your coworker will still have a few options. For example, he will be able to change the time of day to make sun study. He can change the months to visualize the lighting during the whole year. He can switch from the pedestrian mode, where you actually are walking on the ground at the height of a human being. You can switch from this mode to the drone view, where you can just fly around your project. And if you have some media already set up, like we do, you can just select the media you want and you can just play it in real time. And I'm talking about real time. This video here is not pre-recorded. That means that at any moment I can just click on the pause button, I can turn my camera around, I can move my camera around, and I can just click back on the play button and this will resume my video where I paused it. And this full screen mode is also, and actually Twinmotion itself is compatible with virtual reality. At any moment, if you have a VR headset plugged in, it's just one click to switch to VR. And in virtual reality, in Twinmotion, you can, same thing as here, you can change the time, change the months, change the weather, change the seasons. You can really start to feel immersed in your project. You can change the materials even, you can make different variations of your project, and you can just basically prototype while you are immersed in real time in your project. So I think that's it for this quick introduction to Twinmotion. I think that's it for my part. I will now just put on the background a quick video that actually it's two videos that I will play one after the other. One I do it myself and one exported out of Jonathan. And we just play both videos on the back and we'll start to pick questions from the chat panel. So now everyone, if you have some question, feel free to ask them. So while we are waiting for the first questions to show up, we encourage everyone to join us on the various social media. So Tianxiao.
Yes. Okay, so Martin is just going to, while we're answering questions, Martin is going to play in the background an animation we've created using this project. So the first animation is created by Martin, and then it will be followed by another animation created by Jonathan. You will see two different styles, both were done with Twinmotion.
One actually with MacBook Pro and one with Twinmotion.
So this one you're watching now is with a PC, and the next one you're going to see is created with a MacBook Pro.
And actually, one thing that we mentioned is that you can use Twinmotion on MacBook Pro and on a workstation. It's just that Twinmotion uses mainly the graphic card. So when you are using Twinmotion, it needs a good GPUs. But the final render, the final output will always be the same. If you are running on MacBook Pro on a workstation, on a Windows workstation, the final quality will always be the same. Just a quick reminder.
Yeah, I see some questions coming in. So there's one about the GPU. So it's from Mark. How effective is an eGPU compared to a discrete GPU? Which GPU is Jonathan using? Yeah, I think Jonathan, can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you okay.
Yeah, I think question for you, because I know that you use an eGPU. Can you share with us some experience about it? It's a question from Mark.
Yes. Is it okay, the sound? Is it repeating on YouTube? Can everybody hear okay?
Yeah, no, I think everyone is hearing you okay.
Very good. Yeah, so I've got a MacBook Pro, and that's got a 4 gig graphics card in, which is okay. You know, and Twinmotion runs reasonably okay on it. I've done some quite good fun work, worked on trains using it and done all sorts of stuff. But generally I work in sort of the medium level of quality as opposed to the high or the ultra. Recently I bought a Razer Core X external graphics card unit, and in that I put in a Vega 64 graphics card, which is a really quite a top of the range graphics card that you'd find in, say, an iMac Pro. And it's brilliant. I mean, so when I'm in the office, I plug that into a 32-inch 4K screen, in 2 of them in fact, and the Razer Core X just takes care of all the graphics card work. So when I run Twinmotion and I render stills or animations, you're talking seconds or minutes. It's probably about 5-6 times faster than the onboard GPU on the MacBook Pro. But you know, it does work on low-powered stuff, but it is obviously nice when you're under pressure to be able to render super fast as well.
Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And about this subject, we've recently, no, not recently, a few months ago. Yeah, we did a test with the eGPU on a MacBook Pro 2017, and you can find the test result on our blog. So I'm going to share you the link later. Mm-hmm. A next question.
Yeah, let's pick a next question.
Yeah, let's pick a next one. At times it could be too realistic. Are there any artistic mods?
Yeah, there is different filter in Twinmotion, like a blueprint filter, like a cartoon cell shading effect. We also have, how is it called? The white model filter, where you can turn part of your project white. So maybe it's the whole project that you can turn white, maybe just the characters. So you have different filter. You can affect this white model on different part of your project.
Okay, let's pick another one from Andrew. How did you put pebbles in the bottom of the pond?
So actually, for the pond, I've just duplicate the geometry. I've used the first geometry on top. I've applied a water material. Then I select this material, this geometry. I've duplicated like 20 centimeter below, and I just change the material to a pebble materials. As simple as that.
Okay, next question. Are the weather effects very heavy on the graphics card? Do they lower FPS? By the way, you're very quiet.
So yeah, there is a bit of issue where when Jonathan started talking, I just fixed the issue a bit late. So yeah, the weather, it uses particle system, so it's a bit heavy on the GPU, but we made plenty of optimization to make sure that when you are playing, it won't drain your frame rate. Basically, it takes 1 or 2 frames per second when you are at the highest rate of particles of rain. So it won't affect that much the graphic card. So yeah. So let's just check.
Yeah.
I'm just going through the whole chat, so we make sure that we don't leave any question.
We just adjust your voice, Jonathan. So
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I'm still here. I was just keeping quiet while you were talking.
Okay.
I can see a question about the export from Vectorworks
exactly.
2017. I'll take that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as I know, I have experimented with quite a few of the export formats from Twinmotion. I've currently landed on using the Cinema 4D export from 2018 and 2019 version. So that's also available in Vectorworks 2017. Previously, I also tried the FBX export and the OBJ. So there's a number of different formats you can try. But I do find the Cinema 4D one works really nicely. And the good thing is it does bring through the RenderWorks materials that I bothered to apply in Vectorworks. So that's, gives me a good head start. I mean, I will often replace those materials with better quality Twinmotion native ones, but it's nice to see, the textured model coming through.
Okay, thank you. And you may notice I just send you in the chat panel our test on the eGPU, so you can check it out. Okay, next question. I use ArchiCAD for my modeling, so I was wondering whether I could import lights from my model, or I can just use the lights from Twinmotion library.
So first thing, for ArchiCAD, we have an add-in that creates a direct link with ArchiCAD and Twinmotion. So just one click, you synchronize ArchiCAD and Twinmotion, it imports the project, and we do a few things automatically. For example, in ArchiCAD, there is a native library of assets like vegetation, characters, cars, and all those assets are replaced automatically by Twinmotion assets. But right now, the lights are not automatically replaced. So the best idea will be to use directly a Twinmotion library of lights directly inside Twinmotion.
Okay, let's pick another one. Does Twinmotion have a top plan perspective view?
Can I answer this one? Yes, it does. Since Twinmotion 2019, it now has. Well, actually, you can obviously put a camera up very high if you want an actual perspective view. So just put a camera up looking down. And actually, one of my tutorial videos, I did a nice one on reimagining a Le Corbusier Villa Savoy video. You're welcome to find on my channel. I did exactly that. I started right up in the sky and I kind of zoomed slowly down. So that was a perspective. However, if you would like to place things nice and accurately, it's also really useful to have what we call orthogonal views, top plan, front view, right view, and so on. So Twinmotion now has that. They're not really designed to produce rendered elevations yet. I mean, it'd be lovely if they could do that like Atlantis one day, but they are very helpful for positioning things like cars, people, trees, in a very sort of accurate way. So really, perspective is there for creating the imagery. I'd say the ortho views are there for working in. Would you agree with that, Martin?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. It would be nice to be able to render out maybe plans and elevations or sections one day. That's just for the list.
Yeah, exactly. We already have a list of such a thing.
Of course.
Okay, next question. Can you import a land survey and get the actual 3D of the site?
So yes, we can import a topographic survey, a point cloud file. It's a .xyz file. We will retrieve all the elevation, all the 3D of the terrain, and actually all this 3D will react to the different terrain tool that we have in Twinmotion, where you will be able to sculpt the terrain and apply some different material, paint some material directly on the geometry. So this is something available indeed.
Okay, we received many thanks. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. Thank you too for joining us. Okay, another question, very expected. I think many people expect that. Any plans for a plugin between Vectorworks and Twinmotion?
So it's something planned. It's something planned. We don't have a date right now, but we know that we have plenty of Vectorworks users, so it's something that we definitely will have in the future.
It's a good answer, Martin. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I know.
I can see a question. I'll take if I may about the updating. So we don't have a live export, which I think some other softwares do at the moment. That would be the ultimate thing. But what we can do with Twinmotion is we can export the model. We can do the plants, trees, props, lighting, furniture, textures, all sorts of things. And nearly always we end up spotting some mistakes, or should we say we want to make some design changes to the model, particularly once we've visualized it or maybe shown the client. So you go back to your Vectorworks model, you change the modeling, adapt the geometry, perhaps change some textures or classes or whatever you need to do. And then we simply re-export the model as a Cinema 4D file or whatever format we used. And then in the import section, you can actually just relocate the re-exported model. And everything that you've done in Twinmotion will essentially stay they're all, you can see it in the scenograph, they're separately organized. So you can still sort of move things around and adjust them. But basically, it makes it quite straightforward. And I've done this on many, many projects where I've had to readapt my Vectorworks model and then just re-export to Twinmotion. So that it's not a live link, but it's almost as good as. So until we get that, that's obviously a very good way to work.
Yeah, it's definitely something we'll work on in the future. The plugin with Vectorworks is something that we'll have for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, but just like Jonathan said, that relocate your update from Vectorworks to Twinmotion is quite easy today. Okay, I got a question for you, Jonathan. Nick said, can you comment on pricing?
Yes, of course. I'd be really pleased for you to have a quick look at my website, get a bit more detail on the pricing. So I've got a website, www.twinmotion.uk. You're more than welcome to look on there. But basically, Twinmotion starts off at $14.50 plus VAT, which is really comparable with a really good value. I would say comparable to a lot of the other rendering software. There's also a few other options. You can get a networking option. It's called Twinmotion Team. The cost of that is a little bit more, but if you're running it in a bigger environment, that would be one to go for where you want to share the license across many users, and that starts at $2585 plus VAT. You can also, when you buy the Twinmotion software, you can actually opt for what they call the Twinmotion Privilege Card, and essentially that's a 2-year subscription to all the updates within that period that are released, and there's pretty good value. You also get a really nice access to the fantastic Twin Linker site that Martin demonstrated. So as well as I think some other benefits like premium tech support, that kind of thing. So I recommend the Twinmotion Privilege Card where possible, but you can always add that later. Does that answer the question? I think it does, but there's other options as well. For example, if you're an Atlantis user, you can actually get a really good value upgrade with some discounts.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear, Jonathan. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, so Mark, it is not very clear for him just now. So he asks, so there is or is not an ortho plan view?
So yeah, Mark, there is a ortho view, so top, front, left, right, but it's mainly a placing tool. It's not meant to be a render. It's just to place precisely your object in the world. So yes, it's possible you have that inside Twinmotion.
Okay, next one, is there any form of free trial or something similar in nature so you can get to grips and see how it fits your computer before buying? Of course, you just need to go to twinmotion.com, and we have a 20-day fully functional trial version. And what is interesting is that when it is finished, you can still get access to Twinmotion with all the functionalities except save and export. So when the trial is finish, you don't need to uninstall Twinmotion. You can still try your project, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And just be aware that Twinmotion used the graphic card. So if you are planning to try the software, be sure just to not run it on like a low-end PC where you won't have a great experience of Twinmotion. So here, for example, I was running with a Quadro P5000. It's quite an expensive card, and as you can see during the first part of the presentation, Jonathan was using a MacBook Pro, so you can run on Twinmotion on various type of configuration. Also in Twinmotion, there is an automatic quality setup. So basically, when you are working in the viewport, the quality can be lower, so you will have a good frame rate. You will be able to navigate fluently in the project, and it's just that some effect will be cut off, like the lighting will be not that great, the shadow won't be that great, but the final output will always be the same.
That's the nice thing. I mean, you know, even running it on my MacBook Pro when I'm on the train, I can still get a really good feeling of how the model is developing and how it's going to look. I mean, it doesn't look as brilliant on screen, but when I render the final quality images or the final quality animation, I'm always like really excited. You know, the quality is way, way better than I'm seeing on screen. As I say, if you do have an external GPU or maybe a gaming graphics card, my son has a fantastic gaming PC and Twinmotion runs very nicely on that. You can just crank the quality up to ultra level. And I have to say, it's very pleasurable, you know, to work at almost photorealistic level of quality. And then when you render the final output, it's even better again. So, you know, yes, graphics cards are quite a critical bit. But then, you know, most architects doing, you know, CAD or 3D or BIM work should actually have a PC or a Mac that can handle, you know, this kind of work anyway. And, you know, most architects' offices I know have very good capability.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I see that we're already start the webinar for 1 hour and a half. I'm going to just pick 2 more questions. A question from Thomas: how often there are upgrades in a year?
So Twinmotion, we basically release one new version per year, one main version, usually in just before the summer. And then we have a few patch going through the year, usually one so a bit 6 months after, where we introduce new features. So yeah, this is the release plan of Twinmotion, one main version per year and one patch.
Okay, and I'm going to pick one last question. Is from Jonathan. How is the trial based? Is it on email?
Yeah, the trial is available from the main Advent website. You can just click on the try button. I think all you have to do is create an Advent ID, put a few details in, and then you'll get your full 20-day trial. I have to say, you know, many of the practices that I know who've actually gone that far and had a little play, had a trial, as long as you use it properly. And I recommend, you know, having a play, but also I recommend, you know, actually using it seriously on a real project. It's incredible what you can achieve, even on the free version. So, you know, once you're convinced, then you obviously can think about purchasing in the future. But you know, absolutely, you should definitely try Twinmotion before buying it, just to make sure it runs well. And I think you'll be pretty blown away with what it can achieve in a very, very short space of time. I certainly find that for me, you know, I've been using 3D software for many, many years of all different types. I won't name them all, but for me, I've really got my passion back with 3D modeling and visualization. I actually love being able to create atmospheric animations, not just the odd still image and having to do hours of Photoshop work. And I really love the immersive quality that I'm able to show my clients these days. So when they come into the office, if I do have the project in Twinmotion, I can literally go full screen and give them a BIM motion walk around. And I have to say, it's just mind-blowing for them. They're really, really impressed. But I also really enjoy doing it too. And it really does help me conceive and develop and design better buildings. So yeah, absolutely. Give it a try. Definitely.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, thank you, Jonathan, for this. For sharing your experience. Definitely, that Twinmotion is for this. Just create emotion, make your client feel the space of your project in a very fast speed and short time. Okay, I think we're going to end the webinar, and before I do that, I'd like to thank you again for Jonathan and Martin for this great presentation, good content, and thank you for all our attendees that's been with us for an hour and a half now. And I'd like to share you the link, the website of Jonathan, in case you want to contact him for more questions. And you can see the link to our website to download the 20-day free trial version. And if you have any other questions that we didn't have time to answer today, you can drop us an email. And you can find that we're also very active on all these social media channels, so don't hesitate to join us and follow the upcoming news. So
thank you so much
again. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Chanzo. Thank you for joining us, everybody, and we'll hope to see you again.
Yeah, we hope to see you in the next webinar.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Au revoir.